Now joined by Halifax Panthers chairman Dave Grayson. Dave, welcome back to the show. You're here with a new board and new challenges. What are those challenges and why have you come back?
I think that's a really good question to start with, and I think first of all the challenges are around the old board, obviously, in terms of where they were at as a club and picking up those challenges from that, and integrating the new board who are very enthusiastic, financially astute, but don't know a great deal just yet about how to run a rugby club. So the reason I've come back is to facilitate that and help those guys to get to where they need to get to, and hopefully ladies down the line, and make sure that the club's run professionally and is sustainable. That's our mission.
In the past, you were integral in the Halifax Panthers rebrand. You know, you are a rugby league man through and through, so to speak. I'm guessing, how important is your role here, Dave?
So, I think for me personally, I've said many times, a fan from 1967, so I've been around the block a bit and absolutely very passionate about the club, and absolutely want to make sure that we go forward as a club. But not forget the past. That's a real part of my values. So we've lots of exciting plans that we need to put in place, but that's going to take time, and we need to manage people's expectations. There's a lot of things going on in the game wide at the moment, which, you know, the IMG piece is pivotal for the game, not just for Halifax. So there's lots of things that we need to do in relation to that, as well as just the day-to-day running. So for me, that's a challenge, but also part of the excitement has been, you know, involved in that.
When you look at Halifax from when you left it to where it is now, Dave, how much work needs to be done, you know, to make Halifax a success, to take them to the next level, which I still believe is the Super League for people like yourself and head coach Simon Griggs? Yeah,
I think we've historically, you know, the club's got a great brand and reputation, and has done within the game for 150 years. It's our 150-year celebration this year. And I think we've got a lot of work to do. I think it's challenging for any board, you know, many boards before and probably, you know, to come, but I think it's our turn now as custodians of the club, and the mission there is to leave some sort of legacy where the club is in a better position, but also is right up there with regard to that Super League ambition. And, you know, first forum we did, I went on record as saying that, you know, it's 20 years we've been in the wilderness, it's a long time, but you have to make things happen, and you know, people just literally not just going to rock up on game day. We've got to go out into the community and do that and spread that brand, let people know what we're about, what we're trying to achieve. And for Simon, it's part of his education as an up-and-coming coach is to get the right product on the field, and at the moment I think he's doing that.
How important is this IMG reimagination, remodelling, restructuring, Dave?
I think strategically for the game, it has to happen. You know, the whole concept, I understand why the Rugby Football League's done that, because whichever way you cut it, our footfall and eyeballs on the game has diminished over a long time, and we need to stop that and start to increase, you know, that footfall and eyeballs back on the game. We have to do that, as I mentioned earlier, in a sustainable manner, not just at Halifax, but the game in general. So it's about upping standards, it's about understanding the business model, and it's about making sure that there's a Halifax in another 150 years' time. And the IMG piece are the facilitators for that. And, you know, we've got to support that, in my opinion, to make sure. But I think from a standards point of view, they will drive through probably the return on investment idea that the RFL brought in. My gut feel is that'll be an extension of that with IMG, and we've got to professionalise. It's as simple as that, and that's what we need to do.
Do you feel that this is a pivotal moment in the sport of rugby league, which potentially, Dave, might see some clubs unfortunately fall by the wayside and no longer exist?
I'd hate for that to happen, but in business, unfortunately, which is my background, that does happen. It sometimes ends up being survival of the fittest, and certainly Halifax, we want to be right up there in terms of knocking on the door, but there's a lot of history, and I have massive respect for a lot of the clubs that are with us in the Rugby Football League, from Super League, Championship and League One, and even more so even in the community game. And, you know, the whole game-wide structure needs to be looked at, in my opinion, but it is a risk for some of those clubs, I've no doubt about that. parochial wise, I might want to make sure it's not Halifax, but it's a challenge for people.
On the actual grading and pillars, clubs haven't still been told what's going to be weighted, what the actual gradings are going to look like. What's the latest as a chairman of a championship club? And I guess, is urgency a key word in this, getting this out there? So
you can cut that one or two ways. So I'm very much a proactive person, so I'm already setting up a group away from the day-to-day running of the club, which I'll announce later as to who those people are, but they'll be looking at all things IMG related and strategic. So we're already on with that, but it's a difficult one, and I think we've got to be ready for that, all of us. But from our head coach has actually gone on record as saying he's getting quite frustrated with it, and to be honest with you, I'd echo that. December, January, and now we're into February, and you can be proactive to a certain limit, but until we know what that criteria looks like, we can't make the definitive plans then to react to that and make sure that we're doing what we should be doing. So the sooner they get it done, the better. I think the game as a whole, I think we are definitely at a crossroads. There's no doubt about that. I think what we do with this IMG piece, I think it's 12 years that they're involved, will determine where this game's going to go, and obviously those that care about the game, we want that to make sure it's in the right direction, but then we need to get some meat on the bones and find out exactly what it is that we're required to do so that we can start to get on and do it.
What's the latest you've been told? When do you expect the grading?
Well, last time I was told it would be sort of February, so I'm still waiting for my invite. I've not had anything yet, but as soon as I get it, I'll be there, and obviously we'll be relaying back to the fans and all our key stakeholders at the club as to what that looks like for those that are interested, so that we all know what the journey is going to be.
What do you make of the Halifax Panthers in 2022? Will Mayers joined a really exciting player in Jake Mason as well, from the Sunshine Gold Coast.
Yeah, I don't think he's enjoying it at the moment with the weather in Halifax, but a few Aussies before I've been in that position. But I think Halifax have gone it probably about in a different way in terms of recruitment this time. The squad was pretty strong last year, and if you look at the age of the squad, there's some good young talent in there, and the spine of the team settled, and we wanted to make sure that happened again this year, and we've done that. And to be fair, Ian Crowd had quite a lot to do with that in terms of offering longer contracts for people, which was great. That did help the new board when they came in to at least get some stability for recruitment. So Simon's very astute. I think he's going to be a great coach, and in terms of his up and coming now, but I think he's got a real future, and some of his player selection, I can see where he's going with it, and I think we'll work our magic on the field in the terms of the chemistry, because we've already got that. Teams that are recruited heavily, I get that, I understand that, but it does take time for those players to settle in. We're hoping to hit the ground running this time. We say it every season, but hopefully for once we might actually do that. And I think by having the continuity of players from last year who were good players, we've added quality this year, and a couple of projects as well, so that we can see how they go. I'm quite excited about 2023 and where we're going to go.
You mentioned project players. I presume that's Tommingham from York.
Yeah, as one, and Ben Foster would be another one. Those are two young guys that have got real talent and in different ways, and I'm sure they're going to have a big impact on the game in the future, and hopefully at some point for us this season. Halifax
finished third last season. Dave, are you confident that Halifax in 23 are going to have another successful season?
My expectations are always feet firmly on the ground, and if you look at the championship this season, there's not just a few clubs. I mean, Lee looked as though they were going to run away with it last year, and ultimately they did. Featherstone made a good fist of it, but this year there's a number of clubs. You're probably 7, 8, 9 clubs who could be up there, but my expectations and strategy for us is that we will be in those top echelons and pushing for it again. We have to do.
Season ticket sales, Dave, are they up, are they down? How challenging has it been to make them attractive to supporters in this sort of tough cost of living crisis that we're currently going through?
So, talked to different chairmen, different clubs, and some of the clubs have struggled a little bit pro rata year-on-year sales with season tickets. We've been very fortunate that our season ticket sales are on a par with last year. We did an offer where you could buy a season ticket for 3 years, which did, obviously drive some of that. And that was, the uptake was really good, and I just think, I mentioned it on Tuesday's fans forum, is just a massive thank you to everybody there, because times are hard, and I get that, totally get that, and we've got to make it attractive for people to come, but equally we've got to make sure that the business is sustainable and profitable, and it works to enable us to get better players. But things like the season ticket and the sponsorship have been fantastic again, and Steve Lambert's done a great job there as commercial director.
When you look at the share, it is a fairly largely modern facility. How important is having a facility like this to Halifax Panthers? I mean, I've just come here, Dave, and I know it's council owned, but there's a yoga class going on there. There's doing heart screening in another room. It's to actually come and visit it during the day. It's quite a vibrant hub in the community.
Yeah, and long may that continue. And to be honest with you, as an entrepreneur as well, they could do more. There's we could sweat the asset a lot more than we actually do. But from a professionalism point of view, I think it's a great stadium, and I think when we get back to IMG again, I'm sure that'll be a part of the criteria for that, and I'd expect us to be up there with this particular stadium. It's it's a great place to come to, and certainly the South Stand, when it gets going on a Sunday, it's a great atmosphere.
From a board point of view, will you back Simon Griggs with any potential signings if he identifies a player that he wants and is available?
So our squad is currently about 24. We're going to start with that, see how we go, see what, from an injury point of view, because you just don't know with rugby. You can go the whole season with nobody, or you can, first 3 games you've lost half your squad type of thing. But in answer to your question, the calibre has to be right for the squad. We're not going free fall in terms of just putting numbers on shirts and that's it. We want absolutely to make sure it's a better quality player that's going to come into the club and add value. So that money would be made available as and when Simon saw it fit to do so.
Central funding has been a real sort of point of topic, because with the ROI attachment to Championship and League One clubs, Dave, it started off at 20%, then 30%, now it's up to 50%. How much of a challenge is it for you and the new board coming in here at the share to work with less funding effectively year on year? It's
a massive challenge, and my guess is for some of the clubs it'll be even bigger than ours. When I was here last time, the financial modelling for the club was built on no distribution money, to see where we could get to in terms of sponsorship, revenue, different revenue streams, and we rapidly get into that in terms of reality. Certainly when I first came in, compared to what we're receiving now as distribution money, is way less. So it is definitely a challenge for us, but that's where you've got to work smarter. You've got to look at different revenue streams from different areas and not be dependent upon the RFL distribution money. Great when it comes, don't get me wrong, but if you want to be a sustainable business, you have to think out of the box of just having a handout from the RFL that keeps the club going. So we've got some work to do on that as a board, definitely got some work to do. And to be fair, the consortium are investing money in order to to facilitate that at this moment in time. Ideally, we want to get them to where they're just purely looking at, back to your previous question, investing just purely in Stardust players, as we call it, and getting them at the shareway in the blue and white. When you look at those ROI pillars, Dave, where is the room for improvement here at Halifax? Gates would be number one. Attendances is a big one, and we've got some work to do there. We have to get out into the community and make people realise that we're here, because sometimes I talk to fans, they say it's a secret that there's a game on, and so our media marketing team needs to do a lot of work there. I think we as a club need to get out to, more into schools, community clubs, and just simple. Some chap brought it up again on Tuesday night. Just a simple thing like having a poster out in the town that's in a pub or wherever it might be, a fish shop, saying this is a fixture list. QR codes for the more modern people, where they can just scan it and they can see what's going on. That's where we need to work smarter, and I think that's one. The other is the financials, and those financials are open for everybody to see. So, I'm not saying anything untoward here, but we've got some work to do on our balance sheet to get that in a much better position than what it is at the minute. So that's about reinvesting profit from season on season, which we need to do. So those will be the two big ones for Halifax, and clearly Simon's raison d'etre being head coach is to make sure we're still doing it on the field, of course. So those would be the key ones.
You just mentioned the key point, community. Halifax, a plethora of successful community clubs. You look at Siddle as just one. How important is that link between Halifax Panthers and those community clubs?
It's absolutely massive, and I'm a local lad and Boothtown lad, and for me, we've missed a trick. We have missed a trick, and obviously going out of Super League meant we lost that connect and that attraction. I think Bradford, Huddersfield and Leeds have been very proactive, and unfortunately for us have stepped on our patch a little bit. Good for them, but that's not where we want to be. We want Halifax to be, the one that they're talking about. And our CIC are working on that hard. Cara Colvin, she's doing a big piece of work around getting out in the community. But again, back to the strategy, there has to be a more definitive strategic plan for that and connect. And I know Simon's very keen on having Halifax players from the local clubs playing for Halifax, as he did, and Scott. So that works, and I think from a continuity point of view, it's like a production line. You just, it's a hotbed. It's Calderdale, Halifax, of 8 community clubs who do some fantastic work, and fulfil my passion about people playing sport, and they do that really well. They have some brilliant volunteers, do some enormous amount of work. But we as a professional club need to be giving something back to those to support them to do that, to get that connect coming the other way. And I think we've been weak on that in the past, and it's certainly something as part of the strategic plan for sort of short, medium and long-term growth of this club.
You mentioned, you've not just done a 1-year plan, but there's a 3-year and 5-year plan here in place at the Share. 20 years since Halifax were last in the Super League, Dave. What does the 5-year plan look like? What's the long-term goal? Is it to slowly build and develop and work with IMG in the grading and the criteria so you eventually do get in the Super League that way?
That has to be the number one aim for us, and grade A grading is obviously what everybody wants. Realistically, you have to look at what your infrastructure looks like now, where we want to be in 3 and 5 years' time, which is Super League definitely, and how we're going to get there. And the bigger picture for me is staying there. You see a lot of clubs, and obviously promotion, relegation, but we've had a lot of yo-yoing over the last few seasons, and that has its challenges. But for me, it's about having a sustainable and a larger version of a community club, so that the Share becomes a hub for the community, and it's not just about match days, it's about the other days in the week, and having lots of things going on. We've obviously, that's one of our aims, is to work towards that in terms of having a lot more things just than match days going on at the Share. So definitely Super League, and I'd love to leave that as a legacy. Not that I'm going anywhere, but as chairman, but just that we've got a club to be proud of, and that the community, a diverse community as well. It's something I've just working with the RFL now on inclusivity and diversity, and one of 10 clubs that's embraced that. And we've got, quite a multicultural population in Halifax, and we need to work on integrating those people and making it something exciting for them. And not necessarily always to be about rugby either. And there's lots of different things you can do, but that's part of that community vision for the club, so that it becomes an integral brand within Halifax and within Calderdale. So exciting plans, but a lot of work to do.
It's no secret, Dave, it's the 150th anniversary of the club. It's a big one. It's a very big birthday, a very special birthday.
Yeah.
What plans are in place to celebrate this occasion?
So what we've done is, I've done recently, is just increase the size of the original group to about 15, and they're now like workstream leads for different events that will be going on in 2023. We've probably got about 20 at the moment that we're looking at that we think are realistic to deliver. There will be a formal launch pretty imminently, and I'll be able to give more detail then, but we've got lots of different things that we want to do, not just dinners, which is a favourite, but I'm wanting to get, like, the 150 years I think would be great for history lesson in schools, for example, and getting, not just about Halifax Rugby League, but also about the town. So we're working with the council on that. Linda Kitson, who's one of the members of that workstream lead, is putting together a film about the 150 years of Halifax, which there'll be a red carpet event later on in the year. And that's just one example, but there's all sorts of things that we want to do, including our community clubs as well, and elsewhere in the community. So it's very much all-encompassing for the 150-year celebration of this proud club. And
just finally, Dave, the championship starts next month. A lot's being said. There's Keighley have strengthened, Bradford have had a few ins and outs.
Yeah.
A lot of people saying Sheffield might be a dark horse.
Yeah.
John Kay's at Widnes and they look to have strengthened. Yeah. It's certainly going to be a really exciting, competitive competition. I think it's probably going to be the best one in recent history, to be honest with you. If you look at it, there's no one outstanding club that's just going to romp away with it like, to be fair, Leigh did last year. And for me, as a rugby purist, I love that. I'm expecting lots of 22, 24, 16, 18 games, which is entertaining for the fans. It's ultimately what we all come to do, is to watch the games and watch players that are professionals and do their bit on the field. And I think it's going to be a really exciting division. Bit of a hidden secret within the game, and I've said this before, a bit like the wheelchair. Glad that came to light in the Rugby League World Cup, and the Championship's been like that for a while, where there's just some really good talent, young up-and-coming talent, and obviously there's some of the guys that have come back down but add value. But I think this year there's a bit of jeopardy. You're not really going to go to some of the games anyway where you're thinking, are we going to win this one? Don't know. And that's fantastic. That's what you want in it. That's a part of the spice of rugby league and sport in general. So I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully the fans of all clubs, not just Halifax, will embrace it and come on board and watch some cracking games. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Dave Grayson, the chairman of Halifax Panthers. Thank you.